If religion is true, does it need a sword? Can faith be real if it's forced? We're going to talk about coercion and religion on this Iran relevant episode of Mount Hermeneutics. So keep it right here. You're listening to Mount Hermeneutics, where three Marines give their perspective on God, faith, and spirituality with a heavy lean on the divine council worldview. This is not your grandma's Sunday school, nor is it always for the Christian faint of heart. Nothing about who we are or what we say make us experts. But you better believe we'll have a take, and perhaps it won't suck. Yeah, so this is going to be, interesting. If maybe you'll even learn something. Maybe you'll become a heretic like me. Hopefully not.
This is also terrible show content. We should move on.
You brought it up.
Remember that Mount Hermeneutics is free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit that notification bell, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us why we're right, why we're wrong. Get engaged, in other words, and then tell everybody you know about the show, and then make us, super popular. Because we're going to talk about some controversial trash tonight. I don't know if it's controversial as so much as, it's trending. We'll go ahead and,
Nope,
And
it
if
was
it's your,
controversial.
if it's your first time with us, I am Andre. That is Matt. That is Brian. Fellas, what's happening?
Hi.
What's going on, boys?
Just living the dream, guys.
We are. We're
Living
living
that
it.
thug life.
Hell yeah.
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 Anything good?
Yeah.
Anything good going on?
Just just another regime, another week, another regime change.
It's
It's becoming like clockwork, huh?
It's what we
Yeah.
do.
America.
Hey, I'm reminded of when I was embarking for my summer vacation of '02, '03, and my 6-year-old daughter asked me, "Daddy, why do you have to go to the desert?" And I pondered trying to have a geopolitical discussion with my young daughter. And I said, baby, there's just some bad people in the world and they need to die. And she goes, "Okay, Daddy." And sometimes you don't got to get more complicated than that.
I used to love getting the elementary school letters. They had
Oh,
pictures of like
dear soldier.
Dear Marine. My mom says Marines kill people. I think that's cool.
That's
Yeah.
adorable.
It's all fun and games until your wife gets a call from the first grade teacher who's hysterical because she was reading a book to the class and it happened to have a picture. They show they read the page and then they show the class the
Right.
page, and it happened to have a soldier in camouflage in the picture. And my daughter goes, "That guy's a Marine. They kill bad guys. My dad's killing bad guys right now." And the whole class was like,
That was scandalous?
100%,
Huh.
especially in Maryland.
It was weird when I was in Utah and I was like show and tell for little Briar when she was probably in third grade or so. And all these kids are asking me questions. It's time about killing people. He's like, "Do you have this gun and this gun?" I'm like, "How do you
Right.
know about this
They're
gun?"
asking you like Call of Duty questions.
It was all Call of Duty
Yeah.
questions.
Do you have
It's
an
like,
ACOG?
yeah, and I was like, "Dude, you're 8. Why do you know this?" Actually, yes, I do. I have
Mr.
that.
Bibbs,
I don't
instead
have
of
that when I spawn, but I can find it. I know where to find it.
Mr. Bibbs, instead of reloading, do you just switch to your secondary?
What? Yeah, it was interesting.
I
It
bet.
was, it was fun. It was fun though. Those kids were like, "Wow!" Almost like that. What's that? Is it a money commercial where the guy's like doing financing? He's got Derek Jeter and an astronaut, and,
Yeah.
and all the kids are asking him questions about Capital One. And he's like, "You have a World Series winner over here. I've been to space."
Yeah.
Uh,
Or is it
anyway,
investment or is it like a State Farm commercial? They're asking about like home and auto bundling, but whatever it is, it's like this mundane thing. Yeah. And
I think it was a Capital One commercial.
that actually sounds right. Yeah.
It's like the Capital One dude. He's like, "Hey, people want to, save on interest." Derek Jeter's on. What's happening? Like he's like that guy's been to space. That guy make space cool again. I'm gonna get a hat.
right?
Yeah. So speaking of space, um that was a terrible segue. I didn't even know where that was going. I had a thing about the Artemis
I mean,
mission with rockets, and we sent missiles
Mhm.
to Iran. Iran is Islamic. It's coerced religion. It didn't. I'm not as quick on my feet today. I'm sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
mean,
I
that is a
apologize to
really
you
good
two,
segue.
and I apologize to the
Maybe
listeners.
we could get into our rapid fire.
Let's do it.
It's a
That's a good.
little lightning round. Let's go.
Let's go.
That's a good. That's a good save. Yeah, do that.
All right.
Lightning round.
Can faith, wait, I'm sorry. Can real faith exist if it's forced?
No.
No,
Did Jesus ever command political enforcement or belief?
no,
Sorta, but not. But I'm gonna go with no.
Okay. Is coercion a corruption of Christianity or a recurring temptation of power?
Both.
yeah.
Yes.
If religion governs a nation, can minorities be fully equal?
Depends on the religion.
That's an essay question.
Okay,
Um,
good. Can a state enforce morality without enforcing theology?
yes.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
No.
Sh- Should religious law ever override civil law?
Uh,
That's a weird question because how do you answer that in a in the under the premise of of libertarianism and democracy?
and I'm not sure I entirely agree with the distinction, which I know
Interesting.
is weird
Okay,
considering
Is
we'll get into it.
secularism neutral or just a belief system?
it's neutral.
Uh, there's soft secularism, which is neutral. There's hard secularism, which is a belief system.
Can Islam reform without refining or redefining its early political model?
No,
No, it must be eradicated.
Okay. When church and state merge, who eventually corrupts who?
depends on who has more power.
Um, I would, it's the state that is basically the corrupter. Well, it's the state that's the corrupter.
Is persecution more spiritually dangerous than political power?
Um, that's kind of an essay question, or at least it would
Or
need
it could be
essay.
yes or no. Is it more spiritually dangerous than political power?
Uh, I'll say no,
Matt, any thoughts?
and then
Pass, pass.
change, and then I'm going to change my mind later when we talk
Okay.
about it.
Does religious freedom require a distinctly Christian worldview to survive?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah.
If truth needs force, is it really truth?
If truth what?
Needs force.
If it needs for,
If it needs
well,
force, then it's not really true.
um, I would say the truth or falsehood of it is irrelevant. I think the force itself buries the truth.
Which is more dangerous long term? Violent coercion or cultural pressure?
I don't think they're separable.
They're
Really?
certainly separable.
Yeah,
I would say cultural pressure.
I agree with that. Matt wins. And
Wait,
that'll conclude rapid fire.
repeat the question.
Which is more dangerous long term? Violent coercion or cultural pressure?
Um, I'll
You
say
already
violent coercion,
you
but
already know the answer.
do I?
Oh man. So that was rapid fire. It's over. Well, why are we asking these questions, Andre? Why are we talking about coercion and religion? Well, as you know, everybody, that we bombed Iran, and Iran.
We didn't bomb Iran. Like
Yep.
the three of us didn't bomb
Shh,
Iran.
No,
shh, shh.
first of all, that's right. That's right. We didn't.
You just made it
Uh,
sound, I don't
the
know.
the royal we. Okay, we're America.
All right.
We are
I
America. And that's my problem with is
allowed.
there were some Congress people that were talking about this conflict, and they were saying things like, and then they bombed this and they. I'm like,
Yeah, you're Congress.
are
You're
you not
literal.
Congress?
Yeah,
What
you're
happened to we? What about we are not doing the right thing? What do
yeah,
you mean they?
yeah.
I like we should deport you immediately, right back to Somalia.
Rashida Tlaib was tweeting about what the United States does, like in the third person.
Right.
And
Like, yo, you're an American allegedly.
she does not think of herself as an American.
That's terrible. That's a terrible thing.
But that's a different show. So
We're talking about coercion and religion. So it's interesting that in my rapid fire questions, I didn't ask a lot of Islamic questions when everyone knows that the coercive
yeah.
religion of modern day is the Islam people.
To Islam people.
The Islam people, the Muslims. But I
As I
already
like to
know.
call them, the Sand Mormons.
There's a lot of I know that people watching right now they'll be like, well, yeah, but what about the Spanish Inquisition? What about the Mormons and their blood atonement? What about there's gonna be a lot of whatabouts and I think that over if you've watched our show over the last 3 years, you would know that we have a problem with the church too, and we do dig on the Christian church often, but this show is about coercion.
It really, and I guess I should just, at the risk of sounding pompous and self-promoting, just sort of relate my experience recently. While the United States was bombing Iran and toppling the regime over the weekend, I was up till like 4 in the morning, Saturday morning, writing a blog um, about basically church history and how when the church merged with the Roman state, this basically and Christianity became compulsory under law. To live in the Roman Empire, you had to be a Christian. You couldn't openly question it without risking imprisonment, torture, death. A lot of people incurred that. Um, and I kind of explained how this, from a divine counsel worldview standpoint, this basically gave the devil the right to create his own church. If basically the church was bending the knee to the temptation that Jesus resisted in the wilderness to worship the devil in exchange for all of the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. Jesus rejected that. The church bent the knee. I think that gave the devil the right to create his own church that is the mirror and antithesis of what the true church is supposed to be. Um, so I explain all this in the blog. And basically, like Islam is the bastard child of the medieval church. And I posted this blog and it on in various groups in Facebook, and I got a lot of responses from Catholics who were offended, but a lot of them had like zero problem with the idea of the Catholic Church punishing heretics with capital punishment. And so it kind of, it might seem like something far away in Iran that doesn't affect us, but it's still it's an issue that it's very relevant to Christians in the West still. So that's kind of why I have this topic on my mind.
It's interesting because the last question I asked in the rapid fire was, which is more dangerous long term, violent coercion or cultural pressure? And Brian, you're sitting here. Your answer was they're the same thing. Um, I think. And I think we believe that one comes after the other, but I think the cultural pressure that's an interesting take on kind of what I think that's the coercion that Christianity uses today vice the violent coercion that other, states that have religion as part of their as part of their law. We have a bunch of, there's a ton of you're on mute, Matt,
Yeah,
because you're trying
that
to
no,
chime in.
yeah, that was how I read it, and I guess there's an interpretive response on the backside of it too, right? Because the way I heard the question, I was answering it from the mindset of violent coercion is like to me state sponsored, right? So that would
Right.
be, what Brian just said about Roman Christianity and you have to do this otherwise, obviously Sharia law in
Or
in Muslim
apostasy
countries.
laws, right? Like you become
Yeah,
apostate, you did punishment is death,
yeah,
right?
yeah. To me, that's violent coercion. Cultural pressure is when you don't have to, but if you don't, you're not cool and you can't hang out with the cool people, right? So being in a like a Christian community, maybe up like in the Northeast where there are Mennonites or that type of culture. Where if you're not a Mennonite, then your kids can't hang out with the other Mennonite kids, and so it's not violent, but you're also very uninclined to not be participatory, right? And I think the reason that I said cultural pressure is worse is because cultural pressure, when that exists, the people are buying into it. Whereas when it's violent, it tends to be top down, and it tends to be only the leadership that believes in it, and the people are kind of always ready to have a revolt, aka what's going on in Iran right now. That that was where my head was when I heard that question, because I'm thinking about specifically the IRGC, the Islamic regime that dominates Iran. It does not speak for the majority of the population, right? So the population's been looking for a way out, but in a contrary view, in Afghanistan, the majority of Afghanis are Muslim. So replacing the one Taliban leadership will just be replaced by another Taliban leader, right? Or another, militant Islamic leadership, because everybody really wants an Islamic leader to control that region of the country or the world. So that was the reason for my answer.
I
So
don't.
go ahead, Brian.
Well, I mean, I see them as on a continuum. Well, they're not really separate. I mean, I think the cultural pressure as in the scenarios that you just described, like I don't, the cultural pressure lends itself to the violent coercion. The cultural
Potentially,
pressure,
potentially, sure.
yeah. If it's not balanced by other pressures, if it's not, but I'm thinking like in a Christian majority country where everybody is pressured to be Christian, it's and they're this is kind of tricky. Like, I mean, and it really depends on how you're defining cultural pressure. Like, and I've related to you guys a million times all the story of when I would be invited to church before I was a Christian, and I would just ask the honest question, well, okay, but why do you believe all this stuff? And the response was, well, what you don't? And that it was pearl clutching and incredulity that I didn't just automatically accept the truth of Christianity as a matter of being an American citizen. It's nobody threatened me physically, nobody like, you know, ostracized me that I knew about, but there was that cultural pressure to comply. Like, if you want my approval, that you have to affirm these things and believe them and come to church and not rock the boat or ask hard questions. I think when enough people are like that, it does become coercive from the government. And we've been like that in the United States to varying degrees. In Oklahoma, it was illegal to have for liquor stores to be open on Sunday. Um, you didn't get the death penalty if you did it, but you could lose your liquor license, you could lose your livelihood. I mean, there's still state coercion enforcing that. And it was, for people who aren't Christian, um, it was an imposition. It was a violation of their freedoms, however small.
Which
Um,
is really dumb because it should have been on Saturday nights you can't buy alcohol. Because the whole thing was keeping you from going to church. Nobody was being kept from church because they have beer at the house on a Sunday. Like I always thought that was a weird, misplaced law, but sorry,
yeah,
it's neither
I
here nor
did.
there.
Back when I was a political reporter, I did a story on that, and I can never like get a credible source on like what was the reasoning for that. But yeah,
It was obviously a teetotaler that came up with it.
yeah, obviously it was.
Do you think that progressives here in America, um, that's a fear that if we allow Christian quote unquote morality to seep into our nation throughout, that perhaps people that don't believe in that will have cultural pressures. I mean, I think there's like
Yeah,
books about it, right? And it
yeah,
becomes the government, like The Handmaid's Tale. Everybody
exactly.
thinks, right? Like all of a sudden, if we start having this Christian way and what's going on
You
there,
had
then we will, we'll start forcing women to, make babies uh, and the government will be on board with that eventually, and we'll have a big problem. That seems like that's the fear that if we become a
Hmm.
Christian nation, and that's why we must separate church and state.
Hmm.
but
People must have the ability to do this and that.
the irony is that progressivism is itself a religion, and they were more than happy to use state coercion to get their way, and they are. I mean,
Well,
they
and the other irony is The Handmaid's Tale was actually written about Tehran. It was,
was it?
yeah. If
I
you,
thought it was about
I thought about Reagan era California.
no, but I'm saying that this environment that they were envisioning was literally what was happening in
Right,
Iran.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was the
yeah.
IRGC and what they were
yeah.
doing to people because those women were not being treated like that in 1979, right? It was a very secular, open, free environment, and then when Ayatollah took over and threw the Shah out, you got the Handmaiden's Tale.
Weird.
Yeah, funny that.
But in America, I think, is it in California? It's at least in Canada. If your kid it says they're transgender and you don't affirm them, the state will come in and forcibly
That's
remove the child from your home.
that's going on in like either Washington or Oregon right now. There's a big case that's going on with that where the child's been removed and the one parent's rights have been terminated by the state. It's a whole thing. Yeah, it's crazy. And the
Yeah,
kid's like
and
13 or 14.
and there's a family in Texas where the parents divorced when the son was really young, and she stayed with the mother, and she transed him, and the state won't let him, um won't let him take her out of
Yeah.
her custody. He
I
can't
mean,
do anything to stop it.
while it's problematic, at least it was his parent that did it. It's better than the one up in the Northwest where the state is doing it on behalf of the parents, right? I
Yeah,
mean, I don't endorse the parent doing it, but it is the parent doing it.
but yeah, that is in essence, it's a religion. It's a belief system about about anthropology, predicated on these faith-based metaphysical claims about the nature of the soul. That you can be a woman in your soul, even though your biology is male, and vice versa. That's a religious belief, and it's tied to lots of other religious beliefs that make up progressivism. And they're more than happy to employ the state to impose it. In fact, they think it's obligatory for the state to do so. But I think that's kind of I think that's kind of Christians' fault. Like, because we don't. when we have power, we're happy to do the same thing. And I think we invite that when we don't make that distinction. Um,
Yeah,
but
I think that's true. So, that ties back to one of the other questions that Trey asked during the lightning round about if religion governs a nation, can minorities be fully equal? And I answered that and said yes, and Brian said no. The reason I said yes is I was thinking specifically of India. Um, when the primary religion is Hinduism, they have no problems with other religions existing. Like there's no concept of Hindu supremacy. Um, they just don't care. Like if you don't do what they do, that's fine. I think the only thing about being when I was in India that I noticed because of their Hindu supremacy or Hindu dominance was the lack of restaurants that serve beef. Like that was the only thing that I noticed. And the trick is that to my understanding, and if there's any Indians out there listening, clarify, I don't think it's illegal to serve beef. It's just it's not done because it's viewed so negatively by so many in the country. It's
But
just economically unfeasible.
does Hindu govern the nation, or
yeah,
is
I
it
think
just happen, or does it happen they have a government with a bunch of Hindus?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I'm not well
Right.
versed on Hindu politics and fairness.
yeah, I think they have a secular government. Yeah, they're a secular state.
Because it was kind of set up by the Brits, right? So it would
Well,
be
Yeah, a lot of
well,
India is yeah, it's British in flavor, but I mean
that's a terrible statement. That's a terrible phrase.
it means they have
British
no
in
flavor.
flavor.
Yeah.
Um, but India is Hindu dominant, but well, Pakistan had to split off because um, they couldn't live in a Hindu nation and be Muslims. Um, India doesn't officially discriminate between religions, but they have the caste system, so they have plenty
Well,
of
but that's a
inequality.
different issue. I wasn't saying it was a great country.
Well, but I'm just saying that their lack of equality manifests in other ways that other than
But
that's
I wasn't
interesting.
trying to read into the
but
question though.
it yeah, but
The
it
question
is
meant
it
minority
is
Right.
religions.
it is
So
incidental to the question.
Yeah.
is
Fair enough.
Israel's accused of doing this,
Mhm.
where if you're not Jewish, then you don't have exactly the same fully equal right. Christians and Muslims in Israel don't have the same rights. Well, I mean, whether it's cultural or
And
or
that's
just
that's
or
another one.
actual.
Yeah.
So
That,
what rights do Muslims and Christians not have in
I don't
Israel?
know. I'm asking. I'm
that's
asking.
well. That's
They're
what I
they're,
was going
they're
to say.
accused
Is
of it. They're accused of this.
from my limited exposure and experiences, I would say that from a governmental force coercion point of view, minority religions have all the same rights as Jews do. Um, I think then you go, but culturally, right? Because you're certainly not going to walk down the streets carrying a cross, talking about things because there's hundreds and thousands of videos of the response that you'll get locally, and the police seem to be relatively uninterested in stopping the
People,
the the accosting of
I
people.
I was in Israel and there was lots of carrying of crosses around. There was no they there was no problem with that. That was
Is that isolated to certain neighborhoods?
well, I was in Jerusalem where most of it was happening, but it wasn't. I mean, it was like the
Are there Christian sundown states like like you better not be carrying that cross after three, boy. Anything like that?
I'm not aware of anything like that.
Okay.
But
Speaking of sundown, though, what I found interesting, I was in Tel Aviv when I was there. Tel Aviv doesn't stop. It's kind of like Vegas without the gambling.
yeah,
Their
it's
restaurants stay open all night long. My hotel looked out over the beach, which was kind of cool. And they love some beach volleyball in Tel Aviv.
I think I
The,
love beach volleyball now.
those fools played volleyball all night long. Like there were lights on the courts at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and they're literally out there playing volleyball. Now, not in the same numbers as during the day,
Right.
But there were people out there bawling at 3 a.m.
Hmm.
It was interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess, are there any nations left that actually are governed by religion?
I would say that, like, I made the distinction between soft secularism and hard secularism. Um, Soft secularism, I would say I would say that we in by our principles are governed by Christian political principles, and that we have soft secularism. The state does not impose religion upon you. Um, and the state doesn't legislate it's not supposed to legislate morality per se. It protects individual liberties, which is of course a moral principle, but the job of the state is understood to be to protect your right of conscience to live your life however you want, not to impose the morality of Christianity or any other religion on you. And I would say that that is the most Christian possible form of government. What we often have, though, is hard secularism, which the soft secularism is the wall of separation to protect the church and the public from the overreach of the state. Hard secularism is this idea that the wall of separation is to protect the public and the state from the church. And too many of our First Amendment cases have come down on hard secularism, and that's why, like, a coach who prays with his team after a game gets he loses his job because the ACLU has a problem with it. You're not allowed to pray in school, but they pray in to open Congress. Um,
Yeah. I just did a quick search, the list of theocracies that still exist. There are Yemen, Mauritania, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Iran for
So they're
now,
all Muslim.
Vatican City.
Oh, okay. There we go. So, wow.
And then there's a list of, countries that have, that are hybrids or have some amount of, religion built into their laws. But those are the only ones that are, constitutionally theocratic states.
Hmm. So the whole Western world is just secular.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Except for Vatican City.
Except for Vatican City. Are they really the Western world?
No, but so the other thing I was going to mention is we were talking about the difference between um, religious law and civil law and which overrides and which one, takes over, and or when church and state merges, right? We kind of were talking about that in our questions. And I don't have any direct experience with this, but my wife's friend is a Russian, uh, came over. I think I might have mentioned this on the show before. Her mom was a mail order bride. Um, it's a fascinating story. And she 100% did it to get her daughter out of Russia. It was her only way that she could figure out how to get her daughter safe. Right. And she did what she did. And Carrie's friend's name is Anastasia. Of course it is.
Why wouldn't
is
it be?
it that Anastasia?
Have you met her?
No.
Oh, okay. Um,
The famous Anastasia
yeah,
who
no,
was
no,
yeah.
no. But, I hung out with her a fair bit. I asked her about it. I was curious. And in fact, Carrie didn't know. I asked, I was like, so when did you come to America? Why did you come to America? All that kind of stuff. Cause I'm always interested in those things. Well, after I got to know her, she has a definite view and opinion of the Russian Orthodoxy, in that it's a puppet of Putin. And I found that to be interesting. I mean, the minute she said it, I was like, oh, that checks out. Right. It wasn't like I wasn't scandalized by the statement. I just had never given it a lot of thought. And
The, the thing is, the Eastern Orthodox Church has been the puppet of the nearest ruler since the fourth
wielder of power.
century.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It
which is
was, So it was an interesting concept, right? And the reason I answered the way I did, and I said it depends on who has the power, is, as I understand Western history, there were different times when the Pope was a puppet of, the King of France, the King of England, whoever had the most power. But there were also times that those kings were puppets of the Pope.
Yeah.
Right. And that was why I made the comment, just depends on who has the most power. Right. And I think that power has to do with who has the most money, who has the most influence, who has the better friends, right? That wield power behind the scenes. Like all those things matter.
The question was, should religious law ever override civil law?
And see, that's like I think on the face of it, the answer to the question is no.
Sure.
But qualifying it with what I said before about how our Constitution is essentially a religious law. Like this idea of all of these values that we take for granted within secularism of the sovereignty of the individual, the right of individual conscience to live your life according to your own conscience, according to your own understanding, your own pursuit of happiness, that just the indivisibility of the individual as a political unit, that is a distinctly and uniquely Christian idea. You don't have that in any other cult that was introduced into the world through the Bible. And so deep down, all of our laws that are in accordance with that are religious laws. But
No, that's fair.
um,
That's fair. No, Dre, I was more answering the other question: when church and state
Oh,
merge, who eventually corrupts who?
okay, yeah. Okay. Who has more power,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
is coercion a corruption of Christianity, or a recurring temptation of power, or was it another question?
No, it was when church and state merge, who eventually corrupts who? That was the question.
I did ask that question, didn't
Yeah, that's a
I?
good
Okay, yeah.
question.
I have this. I have this list of 20 questions like in front of me, and then I don't remember which ones I actually asked.
instead of like one corrupting the other, I would say that it's one is wearing the costume of the other. Um, it's the state wearing the costume of the church, it is no longer the church once it's wielding a sword to impose its doctrines on people.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
a.
I buy that. Yeah.
I mean, so the original show topic was, specifically around coercion, right? And then Dre, you mentioned people go, oh, Dre, what about, the Inquisition? Two things about the Inquisition. One, it was exactly what Brian just said. It was the church wearing the costume of the state,
No, it
because
was the state wearing the costume
that's what
of
I
the
meant. Yeah,
church.
yeah, that's what you said. It was the state wearing the costume of the church, because that wasn't something that had ever been done by the church before, and it's never been done since, right? So that's kind of thought number one that I have about the Inquisition. The second part of it is, the funny thing about the Inquisition is it wasn't, they weren't, and maybe I'm
Nobody
wrong,
nobody expects it for
but
one
no,
thing.
but that's always true. That's actually rule number one. I got ahead of myself. Thank you, Brian. Um, to to the extent that I've understood it so far, and I didn't dive down deep into it, but the Spanish Inquisition didn't seem to be going after non-believers. It was specifically going after heretics. And that's, to me, a subtle difference. For people that were not practicing Catholics, they weren't being attacked. In fact, Jews lived in the open in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition, and they weren't burning Jews alive.
Yet.
Well, sure. I mean, maybe they would have got there,
Not at
but
that particular moment, no.
that hadn't been a focus, right? They were only
Yeah.
going after hardcore heresy, but in fairness, because of what was going on, aka the Reformation, it was really a power play. It was really an attempt to shut down people that were trying to move the church in a direction that the church didn't want to go. So, and I'm only clarifying that because from the outside in, if you've only seen, some casual mention of it in a period piece, or you've, read about it in a novel that didn't really spend a lot of time explaining what was happening, it wasn't the church just saying, if, say Christ is Lord, or we're going to burn you at the stake. That's not what was happening. It may have happened in small instances, but that wasn't the broad attempt or the broad focus of the Inquisition.
Just when Shia LaBeouf goes out drinking.
There was a question I left off the lightning round. Was the Spanish Inquisition consistent with the New Testament?
Absolutely not.
In answer to that, I was going to say this following on Matt's point, but I would I would contend that no one has actually in all of human history ever been killed um, by Christians for Christianity as a religious endeavor. Um, People have only been killed for politics, not religion. Um, the moment the moment you're bringing coercive force into it, you're just not talking about religion anymore. You're talking about politics. Um, and
Hmm.
that's, you know, and that's really the essence of the Protestant Reformation. It's often thought of as a religious reform. It was really a political reform. Um, it was stripping the church of its. Now, it took a long time. It wasn't complete until the American Revolution and the ratification of our Constitution. But it was really the main innovation. Yes, there were some important doctrinal changes, but the main innovation was stripping the Catholic Church of its political power to impose Catholic doctrine for the Pope to act as an emperor. Um, it started off because various princes were excited about the idea of having their own state church to get themselves out from underneath the thumb of the Pope. But that set the ball rolling to kind of strip the church of political power whatsoever, so that like you really don't even have like Catholics don't even exist today in the sense that they did 500 years ago, where like that Matt Walsh, our favorite Catholic, will often disagree openly with the Pope. Um, that was a dangerous thing to do 500 years ago.
That's how you get an inquisitor to come visit you.
Yeah, like you should expect it, even
Yeah.
though nobody ever does when
Yeah.
you do that. But
Yeah. So, I saw a funny thing. I just thought of this, and I just wanted to share it with the listeners. Going back to that Catholic concept in the Reformation and Protestantism, I saw a meme and it said, if your church wasn't started in 33 AD, is it really a church? And it was obviously a Catholic, meme. And the number one comment was, my church was started at the day of Pentecost. And I was like, man, that's a really good counter to the whole concept of the Catholic Church. Anyway, I just wanted to show that. I thought
yeah,
it was a fun meme.
their church was started in 380 AD.
Ooh, sick burn.
Feel free to use that. The Edict of Thessalonica.
uh,
We
So
got
when
another. Go ahead.
that was when Emperor Theodosius made Christianity, Nicene Christianity, the official religion of the Roman Empire. But so what you were saying?
Oh, I wasn't. I was like, what other questions? Do we have any other questions we needed to recover?
is persecution more spiritually dangerous than political power?
Yeah, I don't remember how.
Is it?
Persecution.
I guess is religious persecution more spiritually dangerous than political power?
Um, I think that they're both temptations. Um, I think that I mean there's the trope that persecution grows the church. Um, so that it's like Christians talk about persecution as if it's a good thing. Um, I think that can be true in certain circumstances. It weeds out the half-hearted enthusiasts. Like you're
Hard
not,
times create good men, kind of thing.
um, well, not exactly that, but it filters out people who don't really believe. Like you're not going to pay the price of being a Christian unless you're actually committed to it. But at the same time, like you look at how Islamic expansion, um, Christians are a minuscule persecuted minority in Muslim lands, because they persecution did not grow the church in those situations. It drowned it. It choked it out. If you're a Christian living in a Muslim land, you're charged the jizya tax, which is, and there's no cap on it. Like the local Muslim tax collector or whoever's in charge of that policy, there's nothing in the Quran or the Hadiths to say you can only, do X amount of jizya tax or X percentage of their revenue. They can
Or
squeeze you
or is it
until,
codified to have to be money?
yeah, they can basically like take anything they want if you're a Christian.
Hmm.
It's framed like when you're listening to Islamic apologists in the West, they frame it as, well, that's a protection
It's like the
fee,
mafia. Yeah.
so that they don't understand the connotation there.
No, but they
But
sound just like a mafia boss trying
they
to
do,
say, like,
yeah,
of course you want protection, don't you? Like, I'd
yeah.
give that to you.
And that's because Muslims are the ones like who are fighting hostile invaders, and Christians you know, are they have the privilege of sitting out, which just means like no one's going to arm the Christian because then they'll have power. But a lot of Christians get like that convinced a lot of Christians over history to renounce their religion and convert to Islam. And so that's a situation where persecution did not grow the church, contrary to what to the kind of, it's almost like a thought terminating cliche that Christians bring up. Um,
Well, so I would, I mean, yeah, but you again use Iran as the case study for what you're saying, right? The trick there was the persecution was so severe and so complete that it choked out the other religions, right? But that doesn't mean that those people are genuine Muslims,
oh
right?
yeah,
As is being evidenced by today's, the news. All you gotta do is open up a newsreel and look at all of the scantily clad Iranian women that are dancing with the old Iranian flag to show that they're clearly not Muslim.
Now, those are the refugees that we need over here. I'll tell you that right
To the front of the line.
now. Are you a baddie? Come on in for a moment.
there's a study, like according to official government numbers, that the number of Shia Muslims in Iran is like 99%. Um, there's an informal study because it's hard to do like formal, like peer-reviewed, scientifically accurate,
In a closed
polls
environment.
in Iran.
Yeah.
But the group is called, I'm looking it up right now. It Gammon, GAMAAN, the group for, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Group for Analyzing and Measuring Attitudes in Iran. It's a Dutch research institute. They conducted anonymous online surveys in 2020 and on. Only 32% of the people, um, who filled out the survey said they were Shia Muslims. Maybe 5% said they were Sunni Muslims. Um, I think there was a
It's not a very Muslim place.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's that's a third of the country that is, and that's assuming that they're even answering honestly.
Right.
Um, it just, they don't, for all they know, that they answer honestly and the Republican
It's a
Guard shows
trap,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
That's the
It's a
same
Spanish,
trap.
that's the same percentage of Muslims as exist in France today.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, do with that information what you will.
yeah, that should terrify
So
us.
it's interesting when we talk about persecution and religion. So would we classify maybe the communists in Russia and in China in the middle of the 20th century? as a form of religion as they persecuted all other religions. Like,
Yeah.
Christians,
Yeah. The religion was the state.
yeah, the Jews were like, people talk about Hitler, but Stalin,
Yeah.
oh, just 4 million. Like, don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Like, it wasn't the same. In different methods, right? They didn't burn them in ovens. They just
Yeah. But the
straight
top
killed
end
them.
of those estimates have it closer to 20 million.
Good grief. So so it's interesting that the persecution of just all religion when we talk about Mao and
Hmm.
Stalin
Hmm.
and just
I think the 20th century saw 100 million killed by communism,
Yeah.
like taken in total, not just the Soviet Union, but everywhere.
just
It's a big number.
I mean they like starved the Ukraine on purpose.
Hmm. Do you know how much force it takes to starve the region that actually produces your crops?
Bruh.
That means they were making the food and then they were coming in and taking the food from them to the extent that they couldn't feed themselves.
That's
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
that's so so everybody says it's religion that's the corrupt thing that does all the murdering. History disagrees with you.
Yeah, even the worst religion that we have, which is Islam, doesn't kill as much as communism. That's a
Yeah.
crazy. That's a crazy. I
It's a
mean,
weird thought
And,
experiment, is
and,
it?
quote me
and
on that, right? Like
yeah,
that's a hell of a thing to recognize.
communism is like a virus that's so deadly that it kills its host like too fast for it to spread.
Hmm.
Um, Islam is like it's more of a slow, like I think if you do the math,
It's like the HIV of bad things.
I did the math one day and like the number of people killed by Islam since Muhammad to today. Um, and this is not counting um like judicial
Honor
punishments like
killings and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
well no yeah, it's not counting that, but it's also
yeah,
not counting things like well you committed a civil crime like you stole or you
yeah,
murdered somebody so we're going to cut your head
yeah.
off
A little
like
capital punishment.
take that
This is this
stuff
is this
out
is conquest.
and just take the conquest and persecution. It comes to about 300 million um
Since Muhammad,
since Muhammad,
yeah,
yeah.
that's still a lot.
Now, and if you do a count of all of the people killed ostensibly in the name of Christianity, and include the conquest of Canaan from the Bible, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I read it. The numbers will check out, I promise. If not, then you can punch me in the face when you see me. If you count all of the people killed, like in the Crusades, the Inquisitions, the conquest of Canaan, all the people killed under, Theodosius and Emperor Magnus Maxentius and all of those yahoos who were enforcing Christianity comes to about 9 million. And that's going back 3.5 millennium. Um, so it now, of course, I absolutely condemn coercive state imposed Christianity, but it doesn't come close to Islam or communism.
And communism killed a third. I guess we say it was 300 million for
Communism
Islam.
killed 100 million
No, I
in the
know, but
20th
but
century.
but only in the 20th
Oh,
century.
yeah,
Like,
only the 20th century.
not going back to 900 AD, right?
Right.
So
Islam killed about
a third of the people killed by Islam dating back since 900 AD. So
800.
1500 years, give or take, right? 1,000 years. We'll say 1,000 years.
It's actually 700, but it took them a while to get off of the Arabian Peninsula, but sorry.
Okay, so even still, 700 compared to 50 years.
Yeah. Um, it, communism's communism's even worse. But I would say that communism at least like it I would bet that living in an Islamic country is quite a bit more miserable even than living in a communist country. Um, it at least they didn't have like a well, it really that the mitigating factor is just that communism was so bad that it burned out. But they at least had a space program. They at least had like, an idea of progress.
They had better Olympic
Islam,
teams, and
yeah, and they had Ivan Drago, who
I mean, who wouldn't want Ivan Drago?
Islam keeps everyone stuck in the Middle Ages. Um, so yeah. Um, did we get all the lightning round questions?
I mean, sure. Do you have anything you need to get off your chest, Brian?
Read my blog.
It's a decent blog. It's a good blog.
Thank you.
I read part of the blog.
Thanks. It's
Yeah.
long, but
Two
And
things. Two things. Since 1900, ChatGPT estimates that abortions have killed roughly between 90 to 100 million babies. So we just put abortion on the same level as Islam and communism.
yeah, that's
And
that's a
that's
gut.
assuming that we don't consider that baby's life is more precious and valuable than an adult's life, because
That's a
no
gut
adults were
punch.
killed in those numbers.
Some adults were probably killed in those numbers, but
Well, they weren't counted in the numbers that I was asking
yeah,
for, because I only asked it for abortion numbers,
gotcha,
not
gotcha.
mothers that died during or whatever.
I,
And then on a slightly lighter note, I didn't know this with my questions about modern theocracies. The nation of Denmark, in their constitution, requires that the monarch of Denmark must be Lutheran. Who knew?
speaking of
Hmm.
Christian persecutions and witch hunts, the Salem witch trials, it turns out that a lot of them were burned at the stake because they were doing abortions.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And, is that a harsh penalty? I don't know. But back then, like, hey, you killed a baby, you're dead. You're
Well,
getting burned.
and I think that was where a lot of the lore came from, because they were doing it with medicinal techniques.
Right.
Drink this and you'll miscarry your baby.
Yeah. So I think that even all the crazy Christians that were doing these witch hunts weren't as crazy as we're led to believe. There was a lot of nasty. Did innocent people die? Probably, more than likely, yes. But was stamping out some of the evil that was going on in these communities necessarily a terrible thing? I
Yeah,
don't know.
It was
C.S.
it
Lewis
was
has a quote about how we think of ourselves as humane today because we don't burn witches anymore. Um, but we don't not burn witches because we're more humane. We just don't believe in witches. Like if we actually believe someone was consorting with the devil and bringing bad weather and plague to your community, you would burn them. Like that's the thing to
no, we
do.
wouldn't. We would not today. People would embrace it.
Well,
Right.
people do embrace it, but
Yeah.
Which
but
is
if
which is why we don't.
but if they believed that that person was consorting with the devil and they understood the devil was bad, not to be consorted with, you get my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I get the
California,
point. I like the quote. The problem is I think C.S. Lewis would off himself if he saw what modern society looks like.
I mean, California just had this new elderly law. Have you seen this?
New what law?
Elderly, where you get let out of prison, you get paroled easier if you're
Oh
old.
yeah, they let that sex pest out who would
64-year-old with 17 counts of child molestation, including kidnapping, with multiple consecutive 25-year sentences. And the sheriff of Sacramento County area, uh, it's like he did horrific things, and he is walking the streets today.
I was struck reading the Torah a while back about how the instructions for like if somebody commits a murder, um, the and he gets caught, they are commanded to stone him to death or to kill him in some way, and, lest the land be polluted by by the injustice of the unpunished murder. Like every time, like the thinking was that if somebody has done something as heinous as take a human life or any of the other heinous crimes for which you could be murdered, this was a pollution of the land that could only be cleansed by the shedding of the murderer's blood. Um, just think of how polluted our land is with all
Oh,
of
wow.
the
Yeah.
guilty people
Mhm.
walking free. Um, there's this widespread belief that like Christians are supposed to be anti-death penalty, that we're supposed to be compassionate to known murderers. Um,
I've never
no,
understood that.
it's
Well, in my mind, okay, so who are you supposed to be compassionate to? The known murderer or the victim? Where should your compassion lie?
Hmm.
In
That scene in Landman was genius.
right, right.
Oh,
I don't remember that
When he
one.
went he just bursts into the sheriff's office into the
DA's office
DA's office and just starts going off on them. It's-
over his son being brought up on murder charges when he
Oh,
inadvertently
right,
killed
right, right,
the
right.
rapist of his
He's
wife.
like, did y'all want to leave out that he died in the hospital of a heart attack?
Yeah.
The guy's like, would he have had a heart attack? My back's to you, bud, because you don't make any decisions around here.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah, we've inherited this mutilated version of supposed Christian morality by people who reject the God who is the source of that morality. And it's yeah, it's
It's a whole nother
A,
show.
a lot
yeah.
of the high profile murders that have happened over the last year are by people with multiple counts, 10 plus counts of
Yeah.
violent acts that
Yeah.
are walking the street.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have a rule where somebody's not competent enough to stand trial, therefore he must go free.
Yeah. It's like, why are they going free? Put him somewhere.
He's committing these violent acts and he's not competent enough to stand trial, which means he's not competent to be in society.
Mm-mm.
So he's got to go.
You got to go one way or another.
He's got to go. He cannot be in society. And
We should do a show on the moral breakdown of the West.
we should.
Okay.
But have we
I
solved
mean, we
coercion? I think coercion's bad. I think everybody agrees.
Thumbs
yeah.
down.
And I mean, I
Is,
asked two questions in the lightning round. Like, is truth really truth if you got to
is
enforce it with a sword? And is faith really faith if you have to have a sword to make it happen?
coercion gets 0 out of 5 stars.
Would
Would
not
not
recommend.
Do
recommend.
not recommend. Do not recommend. No coercion.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think we solved it.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Because I was on the fence.
Read my blog, thethirdhelix.com. It's entitled If God is in Control, Why is Christianity Dying?
Okay. I'll put a link in the bottom. Last time Brian wrote a blog, I said I was going to put a little thing up here that you can click. Turns out I can't because enough of you won't subscribe to our show. We have to have 1,000 subscribers before I can put those little clickable banners on our show.
We don't have 1,000
Nope.
subscribers.
We have
You believe that?
300 and something.
Mm. If
Unbelievable.
each one of you who subscribe got two friends,
His math. He's like got 2 friends.
we'd
What is
we'd we'd be
what,
around 1,000,
what is this, a pyramid scheme?
give or take.
Yes. Yes. It
All
actually
right.
is.
I love it. I love
And
everything about
then
it.
and then we could do this for a living, and it would solve a lot of my
And
problems.
you get so much more content from us.
So much content.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing
Or
or
unless you
not.
don't want as much content, we'll be in a position to, hear you and just
If
tell your friends.
if you're
Just
perfectly whelmed with our content, enough of y'all tell us that, then we won't do more content, but still tell 2 of your friends so we can put little clicky things that you can
and they
click on.
also can be whelmed.
That's what we do.
So,
We love whelming people.
with that, I will say, stay enlightened, stay curious, and we will see you next week. God bless.